The hallway of Lincoln High School was alive with chatter, footsteps, and the loud slamming of lockers. But in the middle of that chaos, there was always one figure who moved quietly, unnoticed, almost invisible to the world, Ava. With her head down and her long hair falling across her face, she walked softly, clutching her books as if they were a shield. Ava wasn't the type to speak up or stand out. She had spent years perfecting the art of blending in. But deep inside her chest was a quiet strength, something no one had ever seen, or believed existed. Ava was the kind of girl who teachers described as bright but silent. She sat in the back of the classroom, always turning in perfect homework but never daring to raise her hand. For years, that silence had made her a target, and there were always predators waiting to pounce on silence. In her school, those predators had names: Samantha, Claire, and their pack of followers. The so-called queens of the hallway, with the glossy hair, designer clothes, and cruel smiles. They found power in making others small, and Ava, shy and reserved, was their favorite victim. It started with whispers, snickers when she walked by, a shove in the lunch line, books knocked out of her hands. But as time went on, the cruelty sharpened. They yanked at her clothes, mocked her for her second-hand shoes, called her names that stung like glass. Ava's world became a cycle of fear, walking the hallways like a ghost, praying not to be noticed, holding her breath when laughter erupted behind her because she always feared it was about her. Her mother noticed the changes. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" she'd ask softly at dinner, watching Ava pick at her food. Ava would force a smile. "I'm fine, Mom." But she wasn't. At night, she cried into her pillow, wishing she could be stronger, wishing she could just disappear. What no one knew was that Ava carried a wound far deeper than school bullying. Her father, once her greatest protector, had walked out on her and her mother years ago. Since then, Ava's heart had built walls of silence, as if speaking too loudly might break what little stability they had left. But life has a strange way of planting seeds in the darkest soil. One evening, when her mother came home exhausted from work, she set down a flyer on the table. "They're offering free community classes, karate, boxing, judo," she murmured. "Maybe it would be good for you to try something new." Ava stared at the flyer. Martial arts. She almost laughed at the thought. She was the shy girl who couldn't even look someone in the eye. How could she ever learn to fight? But something in her mother's eyes, a mixture of hope and worry, made her nod. The next Saturday, she walked into the community center. The room smelled of mats and discipline. People in white uniforms practiced throws and grips, their movements precise and powerful. The instructor, a calm woman named Sensei Nakamura, greeted her warmly. "Welcome," she said, her voice steady but kind. "Remember, Judo is not about fighting others. It is about fighting yourself, your fear, your weakness. It teaches you to use what comes at you, not resist it." At first, Ava stumbled. She fell, again and again, as she learned how to roll and break her falls. She was awkward, nervous, unsure. But with every session, something began to change. She learned how to grip, how to pivot, how to use her opponent's strength against them. More importantly, she learned how to breathe. Each time she hit the mat and got back up, something inside her grew tougher. The girl who once hid her face behind her hair began to lift her head just a little higher. Months passed, and though she was still quiet at school, something had shifted. There was a calmness in her eyes, a steadiness in her shoulders. But bullies don't stop simply because you've grown stronger inside. They test you, again and again, until one day, they push too far. That day came on a gray Tuesday afternoon. Ava was at her locker, carefully stacking her books, when she felt it, a sharp tug at her collar. She froze. Samantha's mocking voice sliced through the air. "Hey, mouse girl, why don't you ever speak? What's wrong? Cat got your tongue." Claire laughed, shoving Ava's locker shut so her fingers almost got caught. A crowd began to gather, sensing drama. Ava's chest tightened. The old fear returned for a split second. Then Samantha's hand tightened on her collar, jerking her forward. "Look at me when I talk to you," she sneered. For the first time in her life, Ava looked her bully directly in the eyes. And in that moment, the hours on the mat, the sweat, the falls, the discipline, all of it surged back like a tide. Without thinking, her hands moved the way she had trained. She grabbed Samantha's wrist in a tight judo grip and twisted, pivoting her body just so. A scream echoed through the hallway as Samantha dropped to her knees, clutching her wrist. The crowd gasped. Claire lunged forward, furious, but Ava stepped aside smoothly, redirecting her momentum. In a flash, Claire was on the ground too, crying out in pain. Silence fell over the hallway. No one had ever seen Ava like this. The invisible girl, the quiet girl, had just broken free of her cage, and broken the pride of her bullies in the process. A teacher rushed over, pulling the crowd apart, demanding explanations. The bullies cried, spinning stories of being attacked. But for once, students spoke up. They grabbed her first. Someone shouted. She didn't start it, she defended herself. For the first time, Ava wasn't alone. In the principal's office, things became complicated. The bullies tried to paint Ava as the aggressor, but witnesses told the truth, and even Samantha's arrogance couldn't shield her from reality. The principal looked at Ava, her calm eyes steady even as her hands trembled slightly. "You have the right to defend yourself," he finally said. "But violence is not the answer." Ava spoke, her voice soft but clear, the first time many had ever heard it. "I didn't want to fight. I just wanted them to stop hurting me." That night, when Ava returned home, her mother listened as Ava told her everything. For the first time in years, Ava let the tears flow, not of fear, but of release. Her mother hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Not because you fought back, but because you found your voice." The news of what happened spread quickly. Some students looked at Ava with new respect. Others whispered in awe. The bullies, nursing their bruised pride and wrists, kept the distance. They had lost their power. And Ava, she realized something profound. She didn't need to be loud to be strong. Her strength wasn't in her fists. It was in her courage to rise when life tried to keep her down. Weeks later, Sensei Nakamura smiled as she watched Ava practice in the dojo. "You've grown," she said. "Do you know what judo really gave you?" Ava thought for a moment. "Confidence," she whispered, "and the belief that I don't have to stay silent anymore." From that day forward, Ava still walked the hallways with quiet steps. But she no longer hid her face. She no longer shrank when laughter erupted. She wasn't invisible anymore, not because everyone saw her, but because she finally saw herself. Her story spread, whispered from one student to another, retold with awe, the shy girl who broke the bully's wrists. But Ava knew the truth. It wasn't about the bullies. It was about the shy girl who discovered her strength, and once you find that strength, no one can take it away. And so, her journey became a message to every quiet soul who felt unseen, every person crushed under the weight of fear. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, strength is silent, waiting for the moment it's needed most. Ava found hers, and she never let it go.